Hi everybody, here is another Suzie Jules Bargello video. In this one I'm going to be helping you to finish off your Bargello projects looking at the whip stitch around the outside. You don't have to do this for every Bargello project. The Suzie Jules Bargello kits are designed to be wall hangings, but as I've talked about before, these kits can be really versatile and you can use them for all sorts of things. This is the canvas that comes in the small Suzie Jules kit, and I've created this using the pattern number 1, which is the flame pattern. You'll see that with this smaller, if I turn it around to face the same way as the pattern so you can see it, as you can see with this pattern, that with the smaller canvas that I've chosen to use it in this portrait way, it hasn't gone all the way round right as far as this goes. It stops pretty much after that first zigzag there, but it's still just as effective. And I've just used that centre point, as I've talked about in our getting started video, using that centre to make sure that my pattern is completely symmetrical on my finished canvas. Once you get to the end of your Bargello project, you will end up with a 1 square around the outside if you have followed the instructions that I've included in my kit. As I've said before, this isn't always what you need to do, but this does allow you to be able to have the space to do some really nice finishing to neaten off your project. I've got this yarn left over from the kit that I use, the small Bargello kit. These are all the different colours I left over, and what I did with this one also was completely randomly use the yarns as well. So I was thinking about, actually I wanted this to be much bluer, so I did less of the mustard colour than some of the other colours. You can see here where there was almost a little bit of grading, so it could be that you do something that where it is graded like that. There's so many different effects you can get by playing around with the colours and how you use them. You might want to do a repeated colour using equal amounts of all of the yarns. So I've got a lovely choice left over here, so what I can do to finish off this small project. I think I'm going to go with the dark for this particular one, just to make it really stand out and bring out the dark colours of this. So I'm just going to get myself a piece of the yarn, snip off, and use my needle threader just to make it easier. So my needle threader goes into the eye of the needle, the yarn goes into the threading eye and pull, and there I am threaded. Now I'm going to be doing a whip stitch all the way around the edge of my project to do that final finishing off and neaten and hide this canvas, and it's really straightforward. Okay, so to start the whip stitch, I'm always going to come back from behind, or come into the canvas from behind, and I want to enter into the stitch that is the square that is behind this stitch here. The reason being that if I stitch into that one square that I've left, you can see this last grid of the plastic canvas showing through, so this really covers it completely. As I pull through, I'm going to put my yarn tail up behind, so that I'm going to trap it in, and essentially from always coming from the back of the canvas, it's going to mean that the stitch is going to be wrapping around the edge and giving you that finish. And we essentially, by leaving that 1 stitch width, gives us a nice decent sized border that really finishes it off. Now when you're working up the side with your stitches being lengthways like this, you want to try and see if you can avoid coming into the stitch if you can. It doesn't matter if you trap a little bit of it, but it just means that you're not pulling over the stitches into the border. You will catch them a little bit, but don't worry too much. So I'm just coming up to a corner. I've gone all up this side and I'm going along the top. I'm just going to now go into the corner space. So I'm using this very edge square here, and I essentially want to cover this corner square. So I do that by actually doing more than 1 loop into. So I've just done 1 which has covered the next door square, but I'm going to go back into that same corner square now and do a few in there to give me enough yarn, which means it's going to get a little bit tighter to get the needle in and out. 3 normally seems to be a good amount to cover that corner, and now I'm going to do another one, but going into the next square. So I've done 3 into that corner one. I'm now going into the next one, but that final one just gives me another wrap around before I now can carry on going into each square, going on down the side. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the bottom of my project on whip stitching around the outside to finish off and hide the edge of the canvas so that I've got a nice finished edge to my project. This is particularly good if you are going to use it as a hanging or wall hanging to display and hang up as it is. You might not need to necessarily do this so much if you are going to perhaps put it in a frame or make it into something else, if you're perhaps going to stitch it together in some way to create something. But for this purpose, that is basically how you whip stitch. Just to finish off, I'm going to now tuck my tail into the stitches at the back, pull it through, and then I can go off and snip off all these edges to neaten it off. So that is whip stitching to neaten. I've left the edge, so in my next video I'll be showing you how you can add some tassels and also some fringing.